do that have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Well, g'day, folks. How are you? Hope you're doing all right. And your Tuesday is, well, not too taxing on you. It's providing its challenges to me, but anyway, most days do in one way or another. I'm not complaining. It is a challenge I embrace most days. Trust you're doing well. I'm going to be looking in weird places tonight because I'm needing to look in different places to play different things to you at the same time, and I'm going to look a little bit cross-eyed and weird. I'll be reading from here. I'll be looking over there and pushing buttons here, and so if my head is moving around, that's the reason why. A little bit of fiddly finger business, which we'll try not to stuff up too badly as we progress through the night. Thank you, Lady Ryder, first in the house tonight. And hello to everybody in there. Daniel's found some dickhead on the road today. Had something to do with pulling up at an intersection somewhere. Shouldn't pull up at a T intersection using 2 lanes in front of an old crusty bastard like you. Just because I talk nice doesn't mean I'll feel right about it. Yep, I sort of feel the same way. And some news on Woptha. So Woptha sent me some texts this afternoon. He's in the chat at the moment. But it does look like he will require a further surgery, and that might be a veinectomy. I'm making it up. But they are going to extract some veins from other parts of his body, veins that appear to be working correctly, because the ones that are leading to his foot at the moment don't appear to be working correctly and are not clearing for whatever reason. So they're looking to do a bypass of sorts, I gather, and that may happen in the next day or two. He is happy. He hasn't eaten anything solid, I don't think, for like 36 or coming up on 48 hours, because they weren't quite sure whether or not they were going to run him back into surgery sooner rather than later. So, of course, nil by mouth, and that's how it's been until he got the go-ahead late this afternoon to have something to eat. So he may have got half a sandwich into him by now, because that's about all he'd be able to get into his stomach. He's only a little bloke to begin with, and after near enough to 48 hours without eating anything, I imagine the stomach will have shrunk up quite considerably. But anyway, mate, our thoughts are with you, and I know Tony and Rachel have put you in their prayer groups, and their healing sessions for you, and you're in my prayers and so many others as part of this family. We are really looking forward to coming together on the cruise in May 4 to 8. If people are just late to the party and you think you might like to come and join us on our Voice of Freedom cruise, it's only up to Airlie Beach and back. It's only 4 days, May 4 to 8 out of Brisbane. And I think, look, I don't know the numbers for sure. We're going to have anywhere between 8 and 15 people or 16 people at the moment. It might be as many as 20. It won't be any less than 8. I can guarantee at least 8 people turning up. Probably 9 people, because I'm by myself. So there will be a single. I don't know how many other singles are coming. I think most of them are doubles. So if you'd like to be part of it, just get a hold of Carnival and get on their ship, which we assume will have fuel come May. But we're going to talk about fuel here very shortly and some of the impacts that are on there. Robert's been out checking out the best meals in town. The best pub meal you've ever had in Queensland. I'm glad you've specified where. At the Woomera Tavern. Can't wait for Thursday night. The best chicken parmy you've ever seen, with chips and salad for $18. Bloody brilliant deal. Got to say, be impressed with that myself. And just between you and me and the gatepost, Woomera is, it's a bit of a drive from here, but it's not a huge drive from here. The biggest thing about going to Woomera for an evening meal is negotiating the kangaroos that you'll find both on the way there and on the way back. And when I say kangaroos, they're big eastern greys. And when I say big, I mean big, like big. I saw one on the side of the road not so long ago. It was the size of a V-dub. And somebody said, oh, it's been there a few days. It's all bloated. It hadn't been there a few days at all. It had been there a few hours. It wasn't bloated. That was just how big the bloody thing was. They are huge, some of these animals, out that way particularly. So be safe on the roads out there, Robert. That would be my tip. Anywhere out that way, big, 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 big kangaroos. Who else has been poking up? I suppose I should really get into the show. But g'day to Giselle. G'day, Margot. Rachel is in the house. I think I mentioned her earlier. Aussie Sue, God love you. And as she always says, please remember to like and subscribe. We can use the thumbs up, folks. The algorithm is not liking us at all at the moment. Don't know if it's because we're telling a great deal of truth or most people just go, oh, shit, it's just Carl raving on again. Well, if that is the case, that is the case. And I apologize if that's the case. I'm going to try and rave on a little more and try and make it enlightening for you. I've had a lot of feedback from people about last night's show. That was really good feedback. People are obviously reaching out for a bit of help. And I think we'll have Malibu in a week or two. She'll have some questions. We'll be able to hopefully have some answers. And maybe one or two of you might want to come on and talk to her in person. Maybe not. Maybe you don't want to show your face. That's okay. We can do it without showing your face. We would like to hear your voice. But I can change that if you feel you really want to do that too. So we can pre-record all this. So there's little things in there. If you want to do it, we'd love to have you as part of it. And there are plenty of people I know that ring me help. Looking for help in various different ways. And I think this is a way for many of you to get some help. Ask some questions, try and find a way forward in moving on from certain parts of your life. And that's probably going to sound pretty vague to most of you, but I'm really speaking to one specific person when I'm saying that. I genuinely need this person to move on. They need to move on for their own good. Their own mental health, their own mental stability, and the betterment of their future. Once they move on, once they embrace the fact that they can move forward, I really think this person can go a huge distance in the area that they want to be involved in. I really think they've got a lot of talent, but until such time as they can sort out a few personal issues, it's hard to help. So this is a way to get some of that help, maybe. Ask a few questions. Can never have too much information, I find. So feel free to ask Malibu at vofhq.com. It's the easiest way to do it. And thanks for everybody who sent an email today saying how much they enjoyed the chat with her last night. She is a liar. God, she's a spark of a woman. She really is, and always has been, an absolute live wire. Huge amount of fun, too, when she's away from being the professional person, I've got to tell you. Now, last night I was confused. I couldn't for the life of me fathom what on earth that was. Now, I had some very interesting suggestions put forward. An early speculum was one of them. You want to be able to see around corners. I would have thought. But anyway, it's not that. I actually thought it could be a finger guard, for somebody who'd broken their finger. Maybe you want it bent in that particular fashion. But then I couldn't figure out why it had the Uncle Martin antennas coming out the side of it. That was all a bit weird. But thankfully, God love him, Tony came to the rescue, and doesn't he always? Just how he is. And what that actually is an antique juicer for a Sunbeam mixer. That is the juicer spout. Spout, sorry. Getting the S's and R's mixed up. So that is the spout for a Sunbeam juice mixer. Very early one. Thank you so much to Tony for helping me find that out, because I certainly wouldn't have ever thought it was a juicer spout in a million years. I won't go on to tell you anywhere where I thought it might be used. Anyway, tonight I want to start with something that most people don't really, well, they think they understand, but I don't think most people actually do. When you hear about Iran's oil exports, you probably picture ships pulling up to ports, loading up, and then heading out. We see it all the time in Gladstone, in Geelong, in Melbourne, in Fremantle in Western Australia, in ports in Adelaide, Geelong, in Darwin. We see all of that all the time. But in Iran, that's not how it works. There is one place, one single island that acts as the beating heart, if you like, of the Iranian oil system. That island is called Kharg Island. And recently, Donald Trump has been making a lot of noises about putting US Marines and other military on the ground there and taking control of Kharg Island. So I thought, well, what are the consequences to the world if the Americans take over Kharg Island and open it up? I thought the immediate consequence might be that Iran turns off the flow of oil coming from shore, which would be an obvious factor they could do. But there's more to this story that we are certainly not being told. Now, oil doesn't arrive at Kharg Island by ship. It doesn't arrive by any other fashion at Kharg Island except pipeline. And those pipelines come from all over Iran and the massive offshore oil fields that they have in the Persian Gulf. Every one of those offshore rigs has a huge pipe that funnels whatever it's pulling out of the ground straight to Kharg Island, where it is processed. That, for the most part, is what happens in mainland Iran as well. There are very few refineries inland, away from the coast and all that sort of stuff. However, Kharg Island is just one huge refinery, and all of it funnels straight into there. So, if you want to think about that, the entire nation's oil production converges through all of these steel arteries, better than what does at the moment anyway, into one single point, a deep water island in the Straits of Hormuz. Why would Iran do that? Well, it's pretty obvious if you've had a bit of a Google Earth even of Iran's coastline. It can't handle ships coming in, not big ships, not big super tankers picking up huge amounts of crude. It's too shallow. The waters are far too shallow getting to the coast. And the cliffs are like this. It's been mooted that if Australia, or not Australia, I beg your pardon, if America and Israel were deciding to get boots on the ground and they were going to come from the sea and try and invade Iran through the sand dunes, if you like, off the beaches, it would be a slaughter akin to what happened to the Australians in Gallipoli, only on a much grander scale and probably over a much shorter time frame. So the Americans have no real love for taking any part of mainland Iran, but if they can control the super tankers, the oil field that the super tankers can pull up, the biggest in the world, they can load millions upon millions of barrels of oil and they can disappear over the horizon with a salute from the Americans saying, "You go on your merry way." Well, it starts to get interesting. So roughly 90% of Iran's oil that gets allowed at the moment to go straight out through the Straits of Hormuz, obviously gets loaded at Kharg Island. Where does that go? Well, we'll get to that in just a little minute. But as you can see, there are a huge amount of arteries all over the nation that bring the crude onto the island for processing. So we're going to explore what it means, not just for Iran, but for global energy supply chains and how fragile that whole system really is if the Yanks, get involved. Once you see how it works, you start to realize it won't take that much to break it. In fact, it will take very little to break it. So take one step further, because it stops being about oil then and starts being about power. Kharg Island doesn't just need to exist, it has to stay open at all costs, because it's not just Iranian tankers pulling up to those jetties. It's what many call the grey fleet, the unmarked, the red-flagged fleet. Ships that don't quite belong to anyone and at the same time belong to everyone who needs oil badly enough. And a large portion of that oil is headed in one direction on that grey fleet, it's going to China. And increasingly, there are overlaps with Russian logistics, shipping insurance workarounds, which are proving, problematic, shall we say, for Lloyd's of London and the American agency that's tasked now with ensuring any ship that wants to go through the Straits of Hormuz. And then, of course, there are all the financial channels that are tying this back into Russian interests as well. So Kharg Island isn't just an Iranian asset anymore. It's actually, I guess, a pressure valve for the entire sanctions system. And as long as Kharg Island stays open and the oil flows, as long as the ships come in, they load, and then they can slip back out again, well, there shouldn't be any problem. The Straits of Hormuz stay open. But what happens if that changes? Not with a missile strike, not a headline, not, something even quieter or more decisive, but boots on the ground. Americans with their machine guns, with all their missile systems and everything, and they take physical control and shut down the operations of Kharg Island, not to disrupt Iran so much, just to say, right, well, now we control the straits, and anybody who wants to go through can go through. It would also give them control to say anybody who wants oil, you can come and load oil. But what happens to the money for that oil? Will it go to the Iranians? I would hope so, given that Trump has said he doesn't want to harm their infrastructure at all. And their infrastructure can only be enhanced by letting the oil go out to those countries and people, businesses that have already been long users of their product. It just means they won't be able to hold a pistol to the world's head anymore. But if that were to happen, the pressure is suddenly all off Iran. Well, isn't just on Iran and Tehran and the people leading it in particular. The pressure actually shifts to Beijing because China is the largest buyer of that grey oil, that grey fleet oil. And it's needing a lot of it to keep everything that they're doing up and running. So the question becomes, if you can't pressure Iran directly, do you pressure the customer, China? You can see that that might have a few problems. Lean on Iran or lose access to the oil that's quietly powering everything in its economy. And if China leans on Iran and says, all right, well, we're not going to support you with all the targeting data anymore. We're not going to do this anymore. We're not going to really supply you with anything because we need access to the oil and you let the Americans onto Kharg Island. There's not much that we can do about it. It might make for an interesting play if you go back to a lot of the Q drops over the years and think about how the leader of China, the leader of America are very good friends. Very great friends, along with the leader of Russia, and that the three of them have been working quietly behind the scenes for some time to achieve something wonderful for us all. Now, we've all been hearing it. Could there be ways and means of this happening? And you have to break the petrodollar for that to happen. We've discussed that before. So, I don't know. It's going to get interesting. So, following the ripple, if Kharg Island closes, even partially closes, China doesn't just lose a supplier, it loses all flexibility. Think about the impacts that it has on the rest of the world if China comes to a grinding halt because of an oil shortage in its part of the world. Modern economies don't run on oil, they run on reliable access to oil. There is something in the supply chain called reliable delivery or just-in-time delivery. Well, just-in-time delivery isn't working anymore. Predictable flows, discounted barrels, quiet arrangements that keep factories going and, supply chains intact, all that's gone once the grey fleet disappears. You take it away, even just squeeze it, put a little bit of pressure on it, and suddenly Beijing, China, has a huge problem. Not tomorrow, not next year. It has it today, right now. So what does that do for the Chinese long-term ambitions for Taiwan? Well, I would have thought that there's some serious decisions they would need to make militarily. It certainly isn't just a military decision, though. It's actually an energy decision. Wars at any scale don't just consume weapons, guns, missiles, bullets. They consume huge amounts of energy. They consume fuel on scales that civilians can't quite come to terms with. Ships, aircraft, logistics, the industry behind it, pushing it, all that needs to be fueled with oil that China previously has had a huge amount of access to and will have as long as the Americans don't go onto Kharg Island. So I think that's going to create more than one issue. Does it delay China moving into Taiwan if they've got an oil issue? One would think so. If America controls the oil and the South China Sea looks like it's becoming a problem again in certain areas, would that allow the Americans to exert a little bit of control along with Australia, because we're patrolling that area as well with our Navy, with our Air Force on a very regular basis? We've been challenged even recently. We've been challenged by Chinese fighters who have been flying very close to a lot of our what would we call them? Surveillance aircraft, I guess is the only thing you can call them, but they are flying in international airspace, and any ships that we've had in the area recently have also been warned off, but they are traveling in international shipping or international shipping lanes, and China can bleat and moan all they like. The problem is China have created islands in the middle of nowhere, islands on what were reefs they've built up, and they told the world they weren't building them up to arm them. And, of course, what is the first thing they did? They stuck missile emplacements all over them, ground-to-air missile emplacements, ground-to-sea or ship-to-shore, shore-to-ship, whichever way they work, missile emplacements, put in large reinforced runways so that they could land large fleets of fighter jets and bombers, which are now housed there permanently in not one location, but a number of locations throughout the South China Sea, while the world sat back on their ass and did nothing. The UN, who's supposedly out there to try and help us all, well, they ummed and ahed a bit and sent out a message that said, you really can't do that. It's not on the cards. China said, well, we're not really doing it. We're just making it safe. Oh, okay, good. That was enough. And we've not heard another word about it. The UN are the mice that they are to a power like China. So, yeah, very, very disturbing. So we could, if the Americans decide to take a lunge at Kharg Island in particular, I don't think the Americans will particularly want to go and invade the entire country. I think they'd be much happier just to control the oil flow. And if they can still get oil from the main part of the country, I don't know how they could. Well, I really don't know why Iran wouldn't have some sort of, stop gaps in their supply system to stop the oil getting to Kharg Island if they had to. But what would be the point? They can't ship it out of anywhere out of the country anyway. So it's eventually got to go to Kharg Island to get converted. So maybe this is a way that will force a way forward. Maybe it is. The China Illuminati family. Yes. Well, Xi Jinping apparently has been tied up with the dragon families for many, many years and has been working behind the scenes. The same as many people aren't aware, but Vladimir Putin is the last of the Romanov line, if you like, and the Romanov line being the last Tsar of Russia. And there is a school of thought that suggests that Putin was brought into this world, born, trained, and steered into a career that was simply geared for one thing, and that was to gain retribution against the Bolsheviks who killed the Romanovs, or killed the Russian royal family during the Russian Revolution. He's there to avenge their deaths. Another Romanov, funnily enough, is Melania Trump. Yes, there are some weird things that we can look up in the world. Some very weird things. Yes, Putin was an Illuminati puppet. Has he been taken out, though? There is so many suggestions that Putin hasn't been the Putin for many years now, going back prior to Trump's first stint as president. So the same kind of thing, I think, can be said for just about every world leader. We are, I firmly believe, watching a movie. In fact, part of the movie, there's new bombshell claims have come to light in the last hour or three. Pardon me. A couple of hours anyway. Charlie Kirk's alleged killer, whose name is Tyler Robinson, his defense team have lodged what we would call a bombshell document into the courts. Charlie Kirk's death from a bullet fired from Tyler Robinson's gun does not compute. The bombshell information that this fella's defense lawyers have supplied the court is the bullet recovered. This is the other interesting thing. The bullet recovered from Charlie, whether it was in him or through him and they pulled it out of something else, I don't know, but it doesn't match the rifle that they said this bloke had, Tyler Robinson. What I can't understand in the rest of that story is that they seem to be pushing ahead with the case. The shell that they attribute to killing Charlie Kirk does not come from Tyler Robinson's rifle, Robinson. The gun recovered in, what was it, mere minutes after it all happened. How could a jury of any kind find anybody guilty when that is a live document and correct from all accounts? So I don't know. They're trying to stitch Tyler Robinson up fairly well. I see somebody in there and demands said the microphone. Yes, Charlie was wearing a microphone. I'll show you exactly the kind of microphone. Well, I won't show you exactly because this one's not going to blow up and kill me. Charlie is wearing a microphone like this. I'll put this down. Now, this has a furry on it, but you can take the furry off. And that is the microphone. Okay, and I'll put my finger up beside it so you can get an idea of how sort of big it is. Now, that has a clip on it, or in this case, and I believe in the case of Charlie's, it has a magnet, a little magnet, so you can stick that inside your shirt and clip that on there like that. Now, we saw what happened with Charlie. We analysed that basically at the time it all happened. And I never believed, for two reasons, that he was shot in the way that everybody was being told he was shot. Something reacted with this that he was wearing. It was on his right side, sort of down here. Now, we've watched this slow motion frame by frame. The wound, well, start with the impact of the thing. This exploded, I believe, and part of it went through him and came out of his neck, out the other side. Now, the reason it came out, I know it came out, is because we saw an exit wound on Charlie's neck. We didn't see an entry wound. They're also claiming that the rifle that shot him is a 30-06. If he had been shot in the neck with a real 30-06, it would have blown his head clean off. Certainly would have blown it in half, but there wouldn't have been any neck left, or very little. He'd have been sitting a bit lopsided in the chair. So there is a lot of bullshit going on about Charlie, and maybe this Tyler Robinson. Oh, that's right. I've got the magnet on, don't I? It could even be something like this magnet mounted inside of this, because this is where the explosives would have been, somewhere inside of this. Bear in mind, you must remember and start joining dots together. When was the last time that small devices like this were used to assassinate people? And who built them? So the last time things like this were used to assassinate people was when Israel forethought bought a company that manufactured pages, not just any pager manufacturing company, but the pager manufacturing company that manufactured pages for Hezbollah and all the other Iranian-linked, Iran too, and Iranian-linked surrogates throughout the Middle East. And then you might remember a day there a couple of years ago where a whole bunch of people died or had their legs blown off in one fell swoop. All these things just went off at the same time. That was because their pages had been built with explosives inside them, and when given the correct code, they went bang. And depending on where you were carrying the pager, carrying it over your heart, well, it obviously killed you. If you had it in your pocket or in a bag on your bum or something, you might have been lucky and just lost your legs. It was designed to maim. And that, Motorola, that's right. And that had been in place for years. They had forethought that years in advance. What else do you think they've done to us? But this is very easy to re-engineer, put a little bit of explosive in. You don't need much. Or even if you do have a bullet mechanism that you're going to fire in through it. I guess it's possible. I don't know. I'm not Q. And when I say Q, I mean the James Bond style Q, not the other type Q. But I'm sure the James Bond style Q could figure that out. And I'm not suggesting that MI6 had anything at all to do with killing Charlie Kirk, as indeed Tyler Robinson appears not to have had anything to do with killing Charlie Kirk. I wonder what that's going to do to Mrs. Kirk. I wonder if she'll be upset to learn that the bloke they arrested for her husband's murder doesn't appear to own a weapon that shot the bullet. And now the trail may have gone cold. In fact, it's gone so friggin' cold that they've cemented over the top of it and grown a new garden around it. In fact, there are portions of that area I don't think you can access anymore. They're now off limits at the university. Or they've built a courtyard over it. Or they've done any number of weird bloody things to it. So, Charlie Kirk's murderer, his weapon does not match the gun they found, or the bullet doesn't match the gun they found. How much further are they going to string that case out, do you think? Going to be interesting to find out. I've been asked to speak about some concerns for our Australian servicemen. And, oh, good Lord, has ordained to give me light again. I've been asked to talk about our servicemen and women who are serving overseas at the moment, not just in the Middle East, but predominantly for those in the Middle East. They know that I have friends and a young bloke that I consider family serving over there at the moment. Clearly, Australia is now getting involved. We've had public announcements that we'll be sending further troops, further assets, not really troops, that's the wrong word. At the moment, it looks like the Navy will be sent in the not too distant future if they haven't already been tasked and are working themselves up to going. And the Air Force, I think, at the moment have 3 Wedgetails in theatre. The Wedgetails are these surveillance aircraft, which are now more important than ever, given, I think I explained in a show the other night, they now provide the early warning missile launch coverage all over the Middle East, in conjunction with a number of American assets, which are flying around as well. Predominantly, those assets are the E-3 Sentries. Now, those aircraft are worth close to $1 billion each. And unfortunately, the Iranians have figured out that when in Saudi Arabia, they can be reached at the Saudi Arabian base by ballistic missile. Now, that same possibility now exists for the Australian assets based in Dubai. Our Australian forces are based at an airport, which is still a civilian airport as well, but it is a very large area, and there is a number of allied bases around it who all have access, obviously, to the runways, and a bit like living at Williamtown, if you like, in New South Wales. And they use the Newcastle airport as well. So the public and private, or rather the military and the public, are the same runway. Same deal. So, oh God, now I forget where I was going with that. Oh yes, so there are people who are on the ground. They're in very safe areas. When I say very safe, they're not buried 10 kilometres down. Although, interestingly, there does seem to be a line of 10-kilometre deep earthquakes happening just inland of the coast of Iran at the moment, and they seem to be happening in a direct line. How interesting. You can go to the US geological thing and bring up Iran and have a look at all tremors, all sizes, and then have a look at the depths, and you'll see that there is a whole line of them at 10 kilometers that goes all the way up to China, essentially. So, yes, got myself all off track there, and I beg your pardon. Where was I going with that? Anyway, I've got other things I'll tell you because we're pushing along slowly but surely. There is some shit things that are happening in the world. Just finally on what's going on in the bases in with the Australians, I don't know. We're not told, and I certainly have no inside knowledge of what's going on there at the moment. I know that Dubai is still keeping a great deal of restraint and censorship on any news reporting of damage coming out of Dubai, of missiles striking anywhere, of the drones crashing into things, and they are now putting people in jail. There's been a number of UK expats who are living in Dubai who've filmed drone attacks and filmed missiles going over or interceptions and things crashing to the ground and bursting into flame and houses on fire or whatever. These people have been awarded fines that go up to 220,000 euros. And they have also been warned that they still may go to jail for posting those images. They have made this very clear that anybody who posts an image depicting an attack on Dubai or the results of an attack on Dubai or showing any of the defense that Dubai might be using against those attacks, meaning, you might just take a video and say, oh, well, they're shooting back from over there. And you post that, what you're showing is a defense emplacement to the enemy. So they'll know what to target next time. I think they probably know what to target already, but this is a great way for the authorities in Dubai to lock down everything, absolutely everything. And yes, they're very serious about it. If you get caught posting, you will be targeted. No, not targeted. You'll be found, door will be knocked on, you will be dragged out and thrown into a cell, made to explain yourself, front an Arab court, explain how you flagrantly denied and decide to go and do whatever the hell you like, denied the laws of Dubai, and you somehow thought you're separate from them. Good luck explaining that. I wouldn't like to be in your position. As for the Australian troops, look, they can't be any safer, but they're not 10 kilometres down. So they can't be any safer, but there is always a risk. And every one of them knew that signing up, and every parent, every friend, every girlfriend, every wife, every husband who's got a serving family member understands that. Doesn't make it any easier to accept, I understand. But those people in the family do generally have great access to their beloved when they're overseas, and whether that be through secure WhatsApp groups or family WhatsApp groups. And if you need them, then you can always reach out to the military. They can be found. Messages can be got to your loved ones. Don't be concerned about where they're at. A lot of them might be a little bit scared because it'll be the first time they've had extremely loud explosions going off near them since they were in basic training. But they won't show that fear because they went through basic training. They passed, and they've passed a lot more things to be able to get to the position they are today, that when their nation needs them to stand up in a very, very highly trained and technical area, these people do, and fear never steps into the equation. Never. Death is death. It's what warriors do. And while it can be hard for the family and the friends left behind, we are not suffering those losses at the moment. So let's not get ahead of ourselves. let's not start worrying what if, because as Malibu was saying in last night's show, if we start saying, oh, they're going to get hit, they're going to have missiles come down, they're going to blow up those planes are targets. Well, yeah, they are, but they're as much a target in the air as they are on the ground. And while they will have some support in the air from fighters and associated other things that aren't going to let anything get close and shoot them down, there is always that possibility they could be shot down. So the risk isn't multiplied or detracted regardless where they are. The risk is the risk. And our Australian servicemen and women rise to that risk on every occasion. Every occasion. We are one of the most lauded and certainly highly respected fighting units, fighting defence forces in the world. And that comes from the ones that many people would assume to be the best in the world. The Americans, the British, the French. Not sure that the French qualify, but anyway, you get the idea. So please, if you've got friends and family over there at the moment, I know you will be concerned. Try and alleviate your concern. Maybe have a chat with Malibu. Ask Malibu at vofhq.com. Maybe you don't, and I know many of you don't want to trouble the military. You have people you can talk to there about it too, but that all gets noted and reported down, and it might go against your son or daughter or whoever, your father or your husband or your wife, whoever it is you want to have a chat about. You want to do it privately. Well, maybe this is your opportunity to do that. Ask Malibu at vofhq.com, and we might be able to help you a great deal. Just on a single note about weird flights in Australia, last week there were a heap of very strange US-based aircraft flying around Central Australia, and had a lot to do with the Woomera rocket range. We think what has been happening there in the last couple of weeks is they have been setting up for, and quite possibly this week, have been firing or will fire some hypersonic missiles. They're going to be doing some hypersonic missile tests using scramjet technology developed here in Australia. And the Woomera range is, of course, one of the best in the world for testing out that sort of stuff. We have a huge area that is available to them to launch and recover if required. But I don't think these scramjets are things they're going to be looking to recover too much from. I think they'll be potentially firing them north out into the Indian Ocean and looking to see what sort of distance and stuff they can get out of these things. But who knows? The tests are the tests, and they're not telling me about them. We just know that there is an awful lot of secret shit going on at Woomera at the moment, and judging by the tail numbers of the planes that are coming in, it's very, very high-level military access from the US that's coming in to check it all out. Here is some breaking news. The bastards in Canberra are going to do it to us again, folks. This week, they are going to ram through 22 bills. 22 bills that have been guillotined through the Senate. Now, I've got to say, Rennick, I'll get to the first one. Mr. Rennick has the right idea. One of the 22 bills that is being rushed through via the guillotine motion and through the Senate this week is a bill called the National Health Amendment Passive Immunological Products Bill of 2026. The bill proposes to amend the legal definition of vaccine so that new and emerging technologies can be listed on the National Immunisation Program. Whew. In his explanatory memorandum, Mark Butler notes that the current definition of vaccine in the Act supports the technical meaning of vaccine being a substance administered to elicit an immune response. That is, a mode of active immunization. Immunization products that do not elicit an immune response and provide protection through passive immunological means are unable to be listed on the NIP. The bill will broaden the definition of vaccine in the Act to enable new and emerging technologies to be listed on the NIP. This amendment will expand access to these necessary products, ensuring the NIP is flexible and fit for purpose. in a rapidly evolving healthcare environment. It seems that our government has learnt nothing from the mRNA vaccine disaster during COVID. The mRNA jabs do give an immune response, an autoimmune response that attacks the organs of the recipient that causes serious harm. These lunatics have to be stopped, and Rennick wants you to join the People First Party, peoplefirstparty.au. They're the only party that can explain the biochemistry of mRNA vaccines to an unsuspecting public. And I've got to agree, Gerard Rennick, I believe, is the only politician, when he was still a senator, that was able to comprehend the data and articulate it, be able to put together very, very serious questions that left bureaucrats and TGA heads in precarious positions regarding their honesty. I think that alone, just based on his performance with trying to hold these public figures, these bureaucrats to account, he is worth having in any parliament in Australia. He may not be able to get elected. I would hope that he and Pauline Hanson would be able to put some of their animosity aside. I would hope that Rennick can see that he is worth more to Australia just being there, able to ask these questions and guide whatever party he's part of, be that his own, or should he choose to help One Nation as a consultant, guide them into understanding how this works. Now, I understand from a consultant's perspective, it might be difficult to convince One Nation of anything at the moment because they're riding high. They've got a tsunami of support pushing them around the country, and they can currently do no wrong, and they're not going to be told any different. That is the way the Australian ego tends to draw things, I guess, and we'll live to see how that plays out. But I would urge Gerard Rennick to consider the possibility that there might be a future riding that tsunami wave of support to get back into a position where your ability to articulate just how dangerous what these bastards are doing by redefining the word vaccine really is, not just to people here today in Australia, but to people around the world and to our future, our children's future, our grandchildren's future, our great-grandchildren's future. Gerard Rennick has a lot to offer this country, and I hope at some point he gets the opportunity to get back in and bring that either as a parliamentarian or as a senior advisor to people who are meant to be running this country, who do have what's best for this country at the front of their minds, and who will demonstrate that in their actions. So, yeah, it's hopeful. I know. Nothing if not bloody hopeful. All right, let's go back to the chat. Who's saying what and where tonight? The Vic State in November, the election in November will be very interesting, Ian. It will. It seems the state is lost to the dark side right now. I'd say it's been lost to the dark side for some years. How deeply lost? And, I don't think it could get much more deeply lost. I guess they lost their Antichrist stand-in the form of Dan Andrews, the man who supposedly has had a stroke and has disappeared off the face of the earth. I mean, I shit you not, this bloke can hide better than Desi Freeman ever could. I don't see Victoria Police hunting him down. The guy's meant to be in court. He's meant to be answering questions over the lies that he and his wife told after they hit and ran from a young bike rider many years ago. before he became Premier, but he was being groomed for it. He already knew the signs, all the symbology. He'd been and done the ritual, which I believe happened on a Melbourne dock. That satanic ritual, the sacrifice, where he had to stab a baby. I believe that happened on a Melbourne dock. I believe it was filmed. I believe that film is available if you know the right people. I believe it's been sent to Victoria Police, and I believe they've done nothing about it. So, what else would you expect from a police force that would shoot its own people before it would catch the criminals within it, whether it's the criminals within their own organisation or the ones who are just robbing people on the streets with machetes? No, they would prefer to make life for you and I harder. And if you have dared to be tarred by one of your intelligent friends and spoken of as, oh, you don't mind my friend Bill, he's a sovereign citizen, but he's all right. Well, when the police hear that you're a sovereign citizen, that triggers something in them because, let's face it, those of them that get triggered by the word sovereign citizens are not smart enough to understand that you can't put the two words together. They're just the monkeys, the gorillas. I can do what I'm told. And that's about it. If any of them actually stood to try and understand why you can't put sovereign and citizen together and why calling Desi a self-confessed sovereign citizen is nothing more than pissing on his grave in a weak, gutless manner that we would expect the Victoria Police to act in, and the Victorian media for that matter as well. Quite frankly, I think they'll just plant a lemon tree and you can piss on it all you like. That'd make Desi pretty happy. Lemon trees are good for that. At least there'd be some use coming out of the Victoria Police Force then. Fresh lemons. Corrupt as shit. And I say that with a very heavy heart, because one of my best mates, I think I've spoken about him, my best mate for a long time was a Victorian policeman. It's all he ever wanted to do from the age he was 16, and it eventually wound up contributing to his suicide. So I've had a lot to do with the Victoria Police over my younger years, and I don't today believe that the Victoria Police is anything like it was back then. But back then, it still had its problems. So Giselle's making lemon yogurt as we speak. Well, I hope I haven't put a sour taste in your mouth. That's all, Giselle. All my talk of what we could do with a lemon tree. But yeah, there you go. That doesn't sound bad, actually. Lemon yogurt. Yum. I'm a bit of a lemon meringue fan or a lemon tart fan. I love lemon anything. In fact, now that we're talking about it, I actually have some lemon butter here, and I might just have to go and have toast with lemon butter on it now that you've got me going. Thanks, Gisela. Really appreciate that. Very nice of you. Oh, my lordy me. All right. Gold and silver. Now, we've not really talked a great deal about it because for those of you that bought at anything over $110, you've probably got a long jaw and thinking, oh, thanks, Khan. Yeah, bloody. You're like those dickheads on the road. Wait until I see you. I know you probably feel a bit that way. I've felt a bit that way at times, but I always get perked up a little bit when I look at the Shanghai Gold Exchange prices. And then I compare those to the spot prices here in Australia, pardon me, or the spot price around the world. And I discover that there is still a pretty significant discrepancy between the spot price versus what you can buy an actual ounce of silver or gold for. And that spot price, depending on where you buy it, can be anywhere between $15 and $20 to $25. That makes a big difference, particularly if you're buying more than 1 ounce at a time. So shop around is my guess there. But as always, the cheapest spot price I find is at ainslieybullion.com.au, $105.57. Oh, hang on, I need to refresh. It's been there a while. $106.57 and the gold and silver ratio is on its way back down. It's sort of 62.5. Gold at the moment is just slightly less than it was last night, thankfully. $6,657.14 as opposed to $666.16 or whatever it was. Don't like seeing all the sixes together. I haven't spoken to or listened. Yeah, I don't speak to. I haven't listened to anything from the Asian guy or any of his other names that he uses in a few days. I did see there was an alert pop up earlier that was an encouraging alert for Australians. And I did see a little bit of that suggested that even if the world does turn to complete and utter shit, Australia has the highest number of resources that are going to be in the most amount of demand in the world during these periods of time, outside of oil. Of course, they're referring to coal and iron ore. The world will stop without steel. Our iron ore produces the highest grade steels in the world. Now, while there are some other places in the world where you can get this higher grade steel or higher grade ore, you can't get it in the huge quantities that we can supply it, nor can you get it at the price that we supply it. Why? Because, well, Australian government and business and whatever has just been getting shafted for so friggin' long that we practically give all this stuff away, and the only people who make money out of it are the Gina Rineharts and the Twiggies of the world, who go off and create huge mining enterprises, become billionaires, and then philanthropize their way around the country, buying netball teams and supporting politicians who like Donald Trump. I'm not having a go at them for doing that. I just would like to see my share of the nation's wealth, which is what they are taking out of the ground. That is the common wealth. All the ore, all the coal, and I'm as much an Indigenous person of this nation as any black fella who was born here. Where's my share? Where's your share? Gina's got everybody's share for all the land she owns. Clive's got everybody's share for the land he owns. Twiggy's got all of it for the land he owns. The Talbots have got all the land and all the shares for all the land and the coal that gets dragged out of their land. I don't see them sharing it with me or you or too many others. Yes, they might go along and build a new hospital wing once every 10 years and put their name on it. Won't that be great? Is that enough? Would you prefer to have a check every 6 months saying, here's your share of the gas exports that we're now making because Qatar is unable to fulfill its $92 billion a year gas contracts because their whole gas infrastructure, gas plant is blown up? Well, I believe that the morons in the Australian government are starting to look at, oh, yes, we're going to have to put a premium on our gas prices. And yes, well, I would have thought that any lack of money they're going to make over the next 3 months because they've halved the fuel excise, $2.5 billion that's going to cost, they should be able to make that up in the first 3 boats that leave Australia filled with liquid natural gas, taken straight off our northwest shelf. The boats don't even touch shore. I'm not sure if you know how that works. I used to have a mate who worked out there, right? And I always thought they were on an oil rig. No, nothing at all. There is a wellhead that goes down to a hole in the ocean, so far down, I don't know, but a lot of feet. It's off the continental shelf, so it's a long way down. There is a ship, the gas processing ship, or the oil processing ship, or the gas and oil processing ship is pulled up there, and that is a big ship, right? A big ship. It processes everything, and for ballast, it puts the salt water that extracts out of the oil in one part and then puts the oil in another part. That oil might then get processed into petrol. That gets put in another part and held there until one of the big transport ships comes alongside and they offload it all. And that's where you see huge changes in the ships. One will go from looking, up at a big gas ship that pulls up, and 24 hours later, you'll be looking down on the gas ship because it's taken on board everything that you're offloading. It's a wild existence. The people who live on those boats go out there for, anywhere, usually 6 and 6 swings. The bloke that I knew used to go out for 6 and 6. He'd spend 6 weeks on the boat and come home and spend 6 weeks. And he said living on the boat was great. He was an engineer. He only had to worry if anything to do with the engineering of the boat stopped working, and most of the time he had a great tan because he sat on the deck with a sun tanning thing. There, I'm sure a lot of other work went on out there, but he was certainly paid a lot of money, like very high 6 figures, for what he was doing. Now, I don't begrudge people getting paid very high 6 figures for what they're doing. God love them. They've learned, they've gone to school, they've done the courses, they have a value. God love them. But I would still like my share all the same. I mean, I'm not asking for 6 figures out of that particular wellhead, but I would ask for something. I would ask for something out of every gas wellhead, every oil wellhead, every mine, whether it be coal or ore or uranium or nickel or unobtainium. I don't give a shit. If some bastard has to dig it up out of our ground, we should get a share of that. Just like in Saudi Arabia, where the Saudis get checks twice a year, I think it's twice a year, that is their royalty check from the sales of their local resource, oil. Now, that means they don't just go and sit on their ass and go on holidays, as I think the Australian government would think most Australians would. No. This means that they can go and open businesses, which they do, all the way through Saudi Arabia, all owned by Arabs, all getting paid their royalty checks. That's how they bought these businesses. And who do they get to run those businesses? They bring in Indians, they bring in Pakistanis. And these people come in, work for very little, but become highly respected, work their way up in those communities, particularly in certain businesses. But in other businesses, they will never be allowed to work. Businesses like gold and silver souks. Not going to find too many Indians or Pakistanis running those in downtown Saudi Arabia. No. You will find them involved in construction companies and that kind of thing. But for the most part, the people of Saudi Arabia own the businesses and they get other people to come in and work those businesses. And that's the way they've been able to afford to do it, because they are allowed to share in their country's wealth. It's the way it should be here in Australia. It shouldn't be just the lucky few who were lucky enough to have a dad who flew over Western Australia and wondered why all the ground was so red, landed his little light plane there, picked up a handful of it and took it back to Perth to get sampled and discovered it was a thing called iron ore. And really, it was just lying on the ground. You could have as much of it as you wanted for next to nothing. And that's exactly what old, what was his name, Hancock did. Cleaned up. I think Rose is still living off the profits, isn't she? Remember Rose Hancock? God love her. Weirdest stranger people you'll never meet. And I did meet her once, but there you go. Anyway, I'm going to love you and leave you for tonight. I've probably prattled on long enough. I would hope if I get my shit together for tomorrow night, we're going to have a bit of a talk about responsibility and accountability. And I was sent a flow chart recently, which was sent to me as a joke. And it is a very funny joke, but we're going to talk about it because I think it reinforces something that none of us really pay much attention to. So keep an eye out. That hopefully will be tomorrow evening. If I can manage to get my shit together, I need to make a few circles and arrows, put them on a picture, and hopefully the pictures will make sense to you by then. Until then, have a bloody good night. Be safe on the roads. There are multiple dickheads out there at the moment. Some of them are extremely angry because they've only been able to buy a small amount of fuel. If it's those people, be careful. If it's the people who've been able to fill up 15 jerry cans in the back of their station wagon or the back of their little Hyundai 5-door whatever, they might be crazy from sniffing petrol fumes. I would avoid them like the plague. Have a good night.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!